I have worked in information technology management for over 20 years, and part of my duties during that period have involved finding, vetting, and hiring IT personnel, including engineers, technicians, analysts, developers, supervisors, and project managers at corporate IT departments and IT consulting firms. So I speak from experience when I say there are a plethora of individuals on the job market that hold degrees, even advanced degrees such as masters and doctorates, but have little to no real-world experience or marketable skills, and have a very hard time competing in the job market. I've hired roughly 50 people during my career thus far, interviewed hundreds, and unfortunately have had to fire several as well. I've had several people with advanced degrees reporting to me over the years. Some have been good, others not so much. But in every case, it's the individual's willingness to learn and succeed and not the degree that has led to their success or failure. In fact, in my personal experience, those with degrees are playing catch-up with their peers that have more real-world hands-on experience. Those with degrees are usually handicapped to one degree or another, no pun intended. Many college graduates don't even make it into their chosen field. In fact, a study by the Strata Institute found that 43% of college graduates are underemployed in the job they accept after college, and 5 years later, two-thirds of those are still underemployed, and 10 years later, half of them are still underemployed, experiencing a 20% pay gap on average. There are a couple of reasons for this. First is supply and demand. For most fields, there are simply more degreed individuals than positions available in the field. The suggestion by some politicians and others that everyone should obtain a degree and then expect to find a job commensurate with that investment is simply an economic impossibility. Second, in many fields, and certainly in information technology, those with degrees start out at a disadvantage to those who have used their time to gain valuable skills and experience in the industry, rather than spending that time in college. Those with hands-on skills and experience are far more appealing to an employer than someone with a degree and little or no real-world experience. College degrees are becoming less and not more valuable over time. This is a direct result of a combination of government subsidization and society's illogical push to drive everyone to obtain a college degree, driving artificial demand up. In 1988, the average tuition cost for a four-year degree was $18,000, and in 2019, that same degree is $102,000 adjusted for inflation. But that degree actually purchases less and not more leverage in the job market. In an economically misguided aim to increase the number of individuals who hold degrees, the U.S. government subsidized college education in the form of federal student loans, which typically do not have to be paid back until after graduation. Most commercial banks got out of this business decades ago because the risk was increasingly high that individuals would not be able to earn sufficient income to pay back those loans in a reasonable time period. Government has mitigated that risk by making it illegal to discharge government student loan debt in bankruptcies. This has resulted in millions of Americans holding over $1.4 trillion in college debt that handicaps their ability to live life, often working at underemployed positions that do not require a degree because they were unable to obtain a position in their chosen field. Colleges, of course, have been giddy with this situation because they have been able to drive up tuition dramatically, far higher than inflation, despite the fact that the value of the degree in the market has in fact decreased. Let's look at a four-year bachelor's degree, which takes an average of 5.1 academic years to obtain. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a bachelor's degree holder makes, on average, $60,996 per year, versus someone with a high school diploma who makes, on average, $37,024 per year. Those with some college and associate's degrees fall in between, of course. The average cost for tuition and fees to obtain that four-year degree, not including room and board, is $102,950. That is across public and private colleges, in-state and out-of-state. Let's assume that someone gets a job at high school and learns on the job, earning their average of $37,000 over the course of their working career, which is 45 years, or the average age of retirement being 63 minus 18 years old at high school graduation. That person earns $1,666,080 over the course of their life, minus approximately $200,000 in income taxes based on 2019 tax brackets, for a total of $1.46 million. Now let's look at the person who obtained their bachelor's degree. First is the cost of the degree, $102,950 on average, and the average student loan debt is $37,000. The rest is often paid for by parents or by working, usually in unskilled positions. That debt is typically paid back over a 10-year period of time, adding just over $11,000 in interest at 5.5%, which is the 2019 average for a federal student loan. So we're at $114,000 for the cost of the degree. Next, let's calculate the income of that person over their 40-year working career since they were in college for an average of 5 years, so that's a total of $2.44 million over their life, minus the $114,000 for the degree, and minus $445,000 in income taxes based on the 2019 tax brackets, for a resulting $1.88 million, which is about a 22% difference versus their high school counterpart. Some might believe that risk is worth it and the return on investment is there, but keep in mind that we're already seeing a paradigm shift where degrees become even less valuable to employers. Now, even large companies such as Apple, Google, Bank of America, IBM, Netflix, and many, many others no longer require degrees of their employees. They've come to realize that those degrees do not mean the recipients have the ability to create or innovate. Rote retention taught in college is less necessary today, with humanities information at our fingertips thanks to the internet and tools such as Google, Alexa, and Siri. Technical degrees are out of date very rapidly, within a matter of 2 to 3 years typically. Corporations and individuals involved in the industry must learn constantly in order to stay on top of the trends and platforms, and colleges with their archaic curriculum structure simply cannot keep up with that pace. When I attended the University of Southern Indiana in 1996, I was astounded at how behind the curve the university was. They were easily a decade behind the industry. I worked at a computer consulting firm during the summer in high school and learned far more from that experience than I did at USI. Unfortunately, this is still true today at most universities, as they and the professors who aren't working in the real world simply cannot keep up with the pace of innovation. Many companies are developing their own internal universities and vocational training systems that are based on actual skills that are needed by their employees, and can teach what is needed in a matter of months rather than the 4 to 5 years, all the while they're being paid and expanding their skills and marketability in the real world. I'm a huge advocate for gaining knowledge. You should live life like a sponge, learning everything you can about everything you can. Those who are hungry to learn have more information and more resources available at their fingertips than ever before in the history of the world. The internet has connected everyone and consolidated books, videos, research materials, and much more, such that you can learn more about almost any topic you put your mind to in the course of a few days of research than you can in a semester of college. The days of the college paradigm are coming to an end. College for the masses was a modern invention. Only since the 1950s has it made economic sense for many. But as with any product that loses its scarcity, its value declines. The free market capitalist system has, more than any other economic system in history, advanced the state of the world and helped our fellow man. More people have been lifted out of poverty under capitalist economies than all others in the history of the world. It's not even close. Socialism and communism, which purport to care for the poor, result in the most destitute societies in history. What you earn is directly proportional to the value that you bring to society. Your value to the marketplace, that is your salary, is determined by the degree to which your time and skills help your fellow man. The more you help your fellow man by delivering goods and services that others need, the more you're rewarded. This system has led to the innovations, goods, and services that have lifted billions of people out of poverty. Human nature is to seek self-interest before others, and capitalism incentivizes rewarding those who provide the most benefit to their fellow man. This is the motivation that drives people to succeed and innovate. Thus, it is important to maximize your time and skills to provide the most that you can for others with the tools God gave you. A large number of students in college today shouldn't be there from an ROI perspective, according to the numbers that we discussed. If you do decide to attend college, please make sure that you're doing so with a well-researched plan, that you are certain what you want to do, and that there will be a job waiting for you in your chosen field upon graduation, so that you don't end up underemployed as nearly half of college graduates do. Do the math, and make sure that your salary is sufficient in your field to justify the investment. Most things in life come down to a cost-benefit analysis, and higher education is no exception. Employer-run universities, on-the-job training, apprenticeships, and vocational opportunities often make more sense than traditional college education. Traditional college education is fighting an uphill battle that it's not likely to win in the coming decades. Those with the drive to succeed and an attitude to persevere will always be successful with or without a college education.
There's no need even to have a college degree at all, or even high school. If somebody graduated from a great university, that may be an indication that they will be capable of great things, but it's not necessarily the case. If you look at, say, people like Bill Gates or Larry Ellison, Steve Jobs, these guys didn't graduate from college. But if you had a chance to hire them, of course, that would be a good idea. It's actually kind of funny. If you think of what is education, you're basically downloading data and algorithms into your brain, and it's actually amazingly bad in conventional education. Because like it shouldn't be like this huge chore. You've got someone standing up there kind of lecturing at people, and they've done the same lecture 20 years in a row, and they're not very excited about it. And in fact, I think a lot of things people learn, probably there's no point in learning them, because they never use them in the future. Because a lot of kids just in school kind of puzzled as to why they're there.
The people who are doing the work that we care about are figuring out what to do next, not following the person who told them what to do next. And the problem with most colleges is they are high school, but with more binge drinking. The entire purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. And if you graduate from college with straight A's, you have to do some serious soul searching as to why you chose to spend your time doing that.
What is it that business schools are doing wrong?
Well, in the investment field, I've thought that over the last 40 or so years that a great many business schools were teaching nonsense. But that doesn't mean they were in other aspects of other majors within the business schools.
In my experience in business, there is very little difference, if any, between a very high-priced business education and what's available for a lot less money. I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln my last year in college. I went to Wharton for a couple of years before that. I learned just as much at the University of Nebraska as I did at Wharton. You need to be prodded in the right direction, but an awful lot of it is self-taught. It isn't necessary to pay $30,000 or $35,000 a year to go to some big-name school to get the education at all. I mean, if you're going to learn accounting, which is probably the most important course you'd take in business, if you're going to learn accounting, you can learn accounting absolutely as well, in my view, going to UNO as going to Harvard. I mean, I see. I'd bet on that, and so I wouldn't run up huge bills in terms of getting a business education.
And education is very good at training people to do the same things that we've done over and over again. And I think there's always a question what the nature of the educational good is. You can say it's an investment good, where you're investing in the future. You can say it's a consumption good, like college is a 4-year party. I think most of the parents and students think of it actually as an insurance policy, where you're buying this really ever more expensive insurance so that the students don't fall through the really big cracks in our society, and we should be asking some big questions why the insurance costs are going up and up like that. And if you were the president of Harvard or Stanford, if you wanted to get a lynch mob of students, alumni, faculty to come after you and try to lynch you, what you should say is something like this. We live in this much larger, more global world. We offer a great education to everybody, and so we're going to double or triple our enrollment over the next 15 to 20 years. And people they'd all be furious, because the value of the degrees comes from this massive exclusion, and what you're really running is something like a Studio 54 nightclub.
It's an extremely corrupt system we have at this point. We have an education bubble. In the U.S., we have $1 trillion of student debt. To a first approximation, this has gone to pay for $1 trillion worth of lies about the value of the education people have received. It's not at all obvious yet, though, what's going to replace this or how it's going to change. I'm somewhat skeptical that it will be replaced by any sort of single unitary system. I have this fellowship for young people to start companies, and it's not. My claim is not that everybody should do this. I don't think everyone should become an entrepreneur, and I think there is no one size fits all. So I think the future will be much more heterogeneous, much more diverse in terms of what people do. What's really anomalous is the sort of unitary tracking, where you have to go to an elite college, you go to Yale or you go to jail. There's nothing else you can do, And so I think the universities are perhaps in the same place as the Catholic Church was in 1514, if we go back 500 years, where you had sort of this monolithic way, this universal way of body of knowledge of teaching things. The difference between the Yale and the Harvard political science faculties are probably no greater than the differences between the Dominicans and the Franciscans. So we have all kinds of small debates within this context. We have a system of indulgences that's costing more and more to support this priestly or professorial class of people. We are told that it's the only way to salvation. You must get a diploma to be saved. If you do not get a diploma, then you will go to hell. And I think the message that I have that's like the 16th century reformers, that's a somewhat troubling message, is that you have to work out your salvation on your own. You have to save yourself, and that's I believe that is the truth, but it's a somewhat uncomfortable one.
A students work for the B students, the C students run the businesses, and the D students dedicate the buildings.
For most people, you go to school, they tell you what class to go to, what classes to take. This goes all the way through university. They do this, do this, and then you go into the class and they say, learn this, and this is the information, and it's largely a memory-based, instructional-based process. I hated school. I really hated school. I hated school, generally, right? Because it was this instruction following thing. Now, I bet you it's probably also because I wasn't good at it. And some people, like I've got a great conceptual memory and a terrible rote memory. So if I have a story, I could tell you year by year kind of what happened within a story, within a context. But if I was to go into, like a memory-based learning, it's terrible. I have a terrible rote memory. Ego barrier is the worst thing. And if we were raised differently, just imagine in the schools, all along, that people will always say, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has weaknesses. The key is really to understand what your mistakes and weaknesses are so that you can learn from them, right? I think punishment is a terrible concept. Punishment means that you made a mistake and you're being punished. I think instead of punishment, every time somebody makes a mistake, you should say the only thing that you need to do to get out of your punishment is first think, what kind of mistake was that? So if I'm in a situation that's like that again, how would I deal with it differently, not to make that mistake? So that learning should come from the mistake, not punishment, because you're teaching people not to make mistakes. Where's where the learning comes from, not the appreciation that if you keep doing this over and over again, you're going to keep encountering the same outcome.
My point of view on college is based on unemotional math. The math is broken. We went through a 50, 60-year period where going to college was ROI positive. If you went to college and got a piece of paper, you would then be able to get the return on that investment because that's how the world worked, and we were in the era of corporations having the control. That does not exist.